The European Action Coalition launches a series of videos on social housing in Europe. Over 3 videos, we will talk about public and social housing, from what it has been, to what it is, to what it could be. In this third and last video, we will share the European Action Coalition vision on public and social housing and how it can be financed.
Houses for people, not for profit. Houses for people, not for profit.
The European Action Coalition considers social and public housing as type of not-for-profit housing, produced and maintained with the financial support of the state. It is an instrument for assuring housing as a universal human right. In our view, it should be jointly owned and administered as a common good by the state and the collectives of the tenants. It is rented out at a price that is affordable in accordance with the tenants' incomes. This type of housing is protected from the market forces and actors that are responsible for the commodification and financialization of the housing sector. It cannot be sold. As such, social and public housing belongs to the larger category of socialized housing.
Our societies are marked by deep economic inequalities and polarization, but housing is a universal right. We believe that creating a social and public housing stock is an instrument for assuring this right to housing for all. Therefore, the housing needs of people who cannot afford a home in the private market should be given a priority in the public investments in the next 10 years, including the ones who are better off, but most importantly, low-income people. We believe that to make adequate social and public housing affordable for all, the rental price of social homes should be adjusted according to people's financial condition, and this cost should not go above 20% of their income. For this, the European Union should revise its economic, fiscal, and social policies as well as the distribution of the EU funds to assure that the member states effectively guarantee the universal right to adequate housing.
We believe that social and public housing should be jointly owned by the state, who finances it, and by the collectives of renters. This ownership should respect the principle of never privatizing this housing stock. Also, social and public housing should be administered as a not-for-profit common good, and real democratic control should be guaranteed for the renters through the creation of housing committees, including tenants' representatives. As such, we demand that central governments keep their responsibility towards the right to housing for all, as to solve the problem at the country level. Nevertheless, local governments should also contribute to the creation and maintenance of public and social housing stock. We also believe that the European Union should have a shared policy across the member states regarding the regulation of the private rents and of the housing market in order to stop the advancement of profit-oriented financial actors in the housing sector as a condition to solve the persistent housing crisis.
In France, the State Bank offers loans for the construction of social housing from citizen savings, and the employees contribute with specific taxes to a public fund from which the state builds social housing. In Ireland, the state borrows money from the European Investment Bank for the construction of public housing, and the loan is supposed to be paid back in the long term via a cost rental system. Sources for increasing public funds for public housing can be also provided by taxing banks for their mortgage schemes and real estate developers, as well as taxing private companies which own a huge stock of homes rented out on the market. A progressive taxation of privately owned homes rented on the market can also contribute to the public funding of public housing. Public construction companies can be created using public funds. These should be exclusively used to pay for the costs of the labor force and of the means of production. The functioning of such companies should not be limited by competition laws, since the goal isn't to build housing for profit. For the construction of public homes, the state should make use of public land, or land that it might buy back from private owners or expropriate for the goal of public interest. We also believe that solutions should be identified in order to integrate empty, private and state-owned buildings into the social and public housing fund, for example via expropriation. In addition, by any means should public funds be invested in the support of private companies. They should only be used for the creation and enlargement of several types of not-for-profit housing, including social and public housing.
In capitalism, housing is a commodity and a financial asset.
Over the years, neoliberal international institutions have claimed that the current housing crisis should be solved by the market and by more deregulation, insisting that public money should be invested in the production of housing by the private sector.
This is clearly not working, and the housing crisis has only intensified, while real estate developers create high profit for investors and banks, which don't serve people's housing needs.
The social and public housing stock as a form of not-for-profit housing has the potential to contribute to solving the housing crisis.
Since it provides public budgets for adequate and financially accessible homes, protected from the interference of market forces and financial actors.
Join the fight for the increase of social and public housing stock
As a common good, democratically ruled by the collectives of tenants
and financially supported by the state.
Together, we can make our demands a reality.
The European Action Coalition for the Right to Housing and to the City is a convergence process between movements from different cities in several European countries, fighting for the respect of these fundamental rights.
We stand side by side beyond the city limits, houses for people, not for profit.